Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. So when it comes to the paper strategic case study, it is usually a big headache for students. And why is that so? Now, it's like most students don't get the concepts that are required by the examiners, and some of them too, they don't cover the syllabus. Most of them cover the syllabus, but they don't know how to apply a lot of the concepts. Okay, that is why they usually struggle. Now, it shouldn't be that difficult. You have to focus and know this is a document from ICA Ghana, and it really goes in depth of what you should know for the strategic case study syllabus and also how you should prepare. Okay, some people have some misconceptions about the paper, but we are going to clarify all those in just a matter of minutes. Is that okay? Father, we thank you once again. We pray that you take absolute control of our class this day. Amen. So, when it comes to strategic case study, we can see here the introduction. And the introduction says, just go full screen. And the introduction says what? Paper 3.4 is a capstone professional course. It pulls together everything you have learned in your study so far and tests your ability to apply that knowledge to real life situations. So the word there is what? Real life situations. So the questions within the exam are therefore likely to draw on a number of syllabus areas simultaneously. So it means that when you are doing case study, it's not just coming from one area, it is going to examine a number of areas in the syllabus simultaneously. So the paper examines your ability to integrate and synthesize and apply the knowledge acquired from the various functional areas of business, in addition to other related business courses, in a holistic manner. So bits and pieces of financial reporting are going to be examined, bits and pieces of financial management, bits and pieces of marketing, HR, R&D, operations and production management, procurement, everything is involved here, even bits of economics. Now, for purposes of making business decisions that will put the firm organization ahead of competitors in delivering value to the customer. So when it comes to strategic case study, most of the time we are talking about value. That's why you learn the value chain. That's why you learn all those models of evaluation, the balance scorecard, the building block model, the performance pyramid. We are all looking at how we can measure performance and create value to the customer. Is that okay? So that is one thing you must understand, a capstone professional course. Now, the key to this exam, look at it. Well, I want you to write notes down. The key to this exam is gaining an understanding of the concepts, many of which you already know from your study so far. how do they impact upon each other, and how they relate to real world practices. That's why when you are doing proper case study exams, you need to what? You need to, as a student, research a lot about various industries so that you know real world scenarios. Are you getting it? Sometimes they just twist that into actual questions for you. So to do this, you need to change your mindset away from looking at individual topics and try to develop a more holistic approach in which your knowledge is viewed more as a toolkit to help you approach questions. You see, the examiner is actually telling you what you need. See, the reason why I have a problem with those doing case study is that sometimes they look at the topics in isolation instead of linking them, right? So this is what the examiner is saying, that change your mindset away from looking at individual topics and try to develop a more holistic approach in which your knowledge is viewed more as what? Toolkit. So you have these models with you that you are always ready to apply them when needed. That is what we need, not like looking at them individually. It is a bad approach. Now, developing good commercial acumen. I keep speaking about this in class, and most students do not understand what we mean by commercial acumen. When we talk about commercial or business acumen, this is your business knowledge that you use to operate at work, right? How do you bring it on board? How do you analyze things from a business view based on your own practical experience? That is what we call commercial acumen, right? And awareness of how businesses and other organizations operate in the real world will be hugely beneficial to you in preparing for this exam. Now, I have a problem with most students. They solve strategic case study questions as if it is just theory they are writing. You may chip in things. For instance, in my workplace, are you getting it? I hope you can all hear me. If you can hear me, shout down there. Let me know. Give me a shout out. Let me know that you can hear me. Hello. So you are answering a strategic case study question, right? Which has a bearing on something you know. Then you say, for instance, at my workplace, most employees are given maybe something, maybe a compensation pay. Maybe you are dealing with compensation, or you are part of board members, right? Then you say, as part of my organization, I'm one of the board members, and this and this. You see, they want to see your commercial acumen, but students don't answer the questions like that. That is how we do real case studies. Case studies are inspired by real life events, so it is worthwhile keeping up to date with what is going on in the real business world. I hope that is okay. So that is the problem most students are always facing. Are you getting it? They think the thing is just theory, like go and read and go and write. Please change that mindset. When you have that mindset, case study is going to always be difficult for you. You get it? You already have the knowledge, but you are looking elsewhere. That is so bad, right? So these are all general tidbits. Are you getting it? So look here. It says what? A better appreciation for strategic case study can be achieved by paying attention to the following. So let's first look at things that the examiner requires us to what? Pay attention to. I hope you can hear me. Please, if you can hear me, just post yes we can, or yes. Let me know if you can hear me. Otherwise, I'll be speaking in vacuum. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. So, a better appreciation for the SCS can be achieved by paying attention to the following. 1. Acquaint yourself with the business world and news around the world, right? This is very important. Most of the time, be listening to news, global news. Mostly, I can attest to you, most of your things, be reading this Economist. There's something called the Economist. When you go online, you see it. And also CNN, BBC. Yes, be reading from there a lot, because sometimes you can see bits and pieces of extracts in your cases. Very important. Read a good newspaper, good quality newspaper or its website. Listen and watch the news on a regular basis. Are you getting it? These things will be of immense advantage. Now, in my case study special class, what I usually do is that sometimes I can take a random newspaper, take a particular organization, and make you go and do research about the organization, and then the following week you'll be doing a personal analysis, you'll be doing a 5 forces analysis, you'll be doing a competitive advantage analysis for that company. Okay, one time I remember I took Tigo and I took MTN, and I asked them to do benchmarking in class. We were online, everybody was on. After 25 minutes, you have to submit me your detailed review. So when that is the case, the student is like, he's always on top of things, right? Ready to go and crack the code. You understand? So it is crucial for you to be aware of the events occurring within national as well as global levels, to appreciate the external environment forces which impact upon organizations and industries and shape the way in which they operate. Are you getting it? Now, how would you do this? I know most of you are workers. Most of the time, I'm talking from my perspective in terms of class, because most students are workers. They are tired, they don't come home early, and that mostly I do the research and then let you work as a group to do your research. So every week, for instance, you have an extended essay which you are going to write, and this extended essay always covers right from the organization's mission. It could be an organization you have created or an organization which is already created. You look at their mission, criticize their mission, draft their strategic plan, their strategic position, which would involve the external environment, all that, to their internal environment, what you think they are doing wrong based on their financial statement. Those are the things you will be doing regularly. You get the idea? So once you are used to this, you realize that, oh, okay, so if fuel prices are changing, it is affecting the business's financial statements this way. I get it. Therefore, this is a threat to the organization because costs are going down, right? Threats as an accountant or as what? A finance person. Why should you be learning pestle? Why should you be learning 5 forces? Are they not for the marketing students? No, you are learning it to know how it impacts your financial situation, right? So if a competitor is coming into the market, why is he important? He is coming to steal your profits. He is coming to steal your customers. As an accountant, look at the financials. If it affects the financials, it is a threat. If it affects it on a good way, it is what? A strength. If it affects it in a bad way, it is what? A weakness. You see ratios changing. Is it good for the organization or is bad? Strengths, weaknesses. You have high gearing. No bank will be willing to lend you money. Stakeholders, shareholders will want to increase their cost of capital. This is a threat. You get it? So these are some of the issues that I want you to be conversant with. Case study should be fun. It should be something that you are learning, like you are learning to. It's part of your normal life, but we take it like exam changing. We don't. I get to know what is required of us. If you want to get the best of this paper, be reading more of the examiner's comment. You realize that what you need is not what you are learning. I get it. That's why people are failing this paper. It's not any difficult paper. The things that you are even supposed to learn, even the ICA strategic case study is limited. We don't have so many things. Go and look at SEMA strategic case study and look at the syllabus. You'll be bombarded. Right? ICA's strategic case study is even not that detailed. Hence, look at how people are feeling, right? So you should have an appreciation for different organizational contexts in which strategic management may apply. So in simple terms, when we talk about strategic management, right, we are talking about the cross-functional decision making, right, where different parts of the organization can work together to formulate strategy and implement them. Do you understand? In simple terms, that's what it means. So your ability to develop a good mission, and also your ability to analyze the external environment to see if there are any opportunities and threats, look at your internal resources and competencies, whether they can match the external environment. Then after you have identified those things, you look at what strengths can take over your weaknesses and match the two, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. From there, now you decide what strategies, your grand and alternative strategies that you may come up with, because now you know your position. That is why we call it strategic position. It is determined by SWOT analysis. Now from there, you ask yourself, are there gaps that I'm supposed to fill? We call that gap analysis. You develop some scenarios. If this should have happened, I will do this. If this should have happened, I'll do this. About 7 to 8 scenarios, or sometimes 6 to 7 scenarios. We call that scenario planning. You get the idea? So the things that we see are not just reading, it is practical. You get the idea? So as you have been able to do that, then based on your position, you now look at strategies which suit your position, right? So you are in a fast-paced environment, and everybody in that environment is using a premium pricing, right? then all of a sudden you become a cost leader. You see, the strategy you are applying does not fit your environment. So that is why we do environmental analysis, so that we adopt strategies that suit the environment. But people look at these things in isolation. You are doing strategic position. Remember, we have financial position as part of strategic position. Go calculate ratios, see how it impacts your strategic position. Position means where you are standing now, which includes your financial performance and position. I hope it's clear. Sometimes you are given a full financial statement and asked to prepare SWOT. Now, a lot of students will have problem here because they're like, I don't have any passage. They always want passage to prepare SWOT. No, you can use the financial statement alone to prepare SWOT. Increase in gross profit margin. Is it not a strength? It's a strength. The business is doing well, but check the trend. How well has he performed? If this guy has been able to keep gross profit stable or have increased gross profit over the years, this seems to be a strength. It seems to be a what? A strength to the company, right? Now let's go to his cash position. The lifeblood of business is cash. So you see an entity where they want to pursue a particular investment, right? It has been silent. The question is silent, and they ask you to comment on the feasibility, acceptability, and what suitability of this new investment. Then you are there, you are quiet, you are looking for theory. No, chairman, come on. Go and look at the financial statement. What is their cash position? Last year or last 5 years, you realize that their cash was what? Let's say 50 million. This time the cash position is 10 million. The investment they want to take is about what? 100 million. That means this guy's cash position one has reduced. It's bad for the investment. Are you getting it? Check their gearing, because these guys are likely to go for funding to fund a new project. As their gearing high, anytime your gearing is high, your capital may be because nobody wants to give somebody who is already owing so much, because it shows you have a poor track record. Is it understood? So these are some of the things I want you to be looking at. Don't learn the financial management in isolation, which is what I see people doing. They learn the financial management separate from the case, from the strategic management. Bad approach. They are supposed to be merged, so that you know the impact of this financial on the strategy and impact of the strategy on the financials. I hope that makes sense. So you see how I was linking them, right? So you first look at the financial statement. Okay, this guy has poor liquidity. He's going for a short-term loan. Okay, so it's to control his liquidity. He's paying suppliers immediately when they fault you, but he doesn't have cash. This is a bad approach. He's using an aggressive approach to working capital management. Let's change it. Are you getting it? So suggest strategies. If you mention strategies in exam, then people are writing market penetration, market development, product development. No, that is wrong. That is not the strategy. The things under that is the strategy. I hope I'm making myself clear. So stop. If they say suggest strategies, don't go and write market penetration. Then somebody BCG strategy, then go and write hold. Maybe invest is good, but what under the invest are we talking about? Are you getting it? The things under it is what we call the strategy. Maybe increase sales by 10%, maybe cut down some product lines which are not doing well. I hope that makes sense. You are getting it. So have an appreciation for different organizational concepts or context in which strategic management may apply. So let me just take you a bit into strategy here. Now, business enterprises so far are what ICA has examined. Are you getting it? Now, we are yet to see a public sector organization. We haven't yet seen a public sector organization. It doesn't mean it won't appear. It can appear. Then we have small and medium-sized enterprises. We have not-for-profit organizations, which we are mostly going to use value for money to assess performance. I get in a faith-based organization, churches, and the rest, the multinational firms. So these are the if I were to be you, I would write these organizations down and always be in expectancy of any of them appearing anytime. So kindly put these organizations down: business enterprises, public sector organization, SMEs, not-for-profit organization, faith-based organizations, and multinational firms. Please familiarize yourself with these organization types. I get it. It will be extremely helpful in applying appropriate strategies within the right concept, within the right context, right? So for instance, you are dealing with what? A church. The church is not making money. Then you said they should do maybe market development, or they should go and do maybe differentiation strategy. Meanwhile, you know, these not-for-profit and faith-based organizations, these growth strategies will not help them. They are more of a stability strategy approach, right? Either pause and proceed with caution, or no profit strategy, or zero profit strategy. Are you getting it? Or maybe a percentage profit strategy. I hope you are all following. So it depends on, you have to study. This is why people are not able to apply. You have to study the kind of organization you are given, then you know what to apply. I hope that makes sense. If it makes sense, give me a thumbs up in the comment section. Also, adopt the habit of reading annual reports of companies, especially of those listed on recognized stock markets. Okay, so this is one technique that I want you to know here. Mostly this type of techniques, I discuss them in class. I discuss them in my class or during my special class, but because I want to help people so that they will be on top of this paper, it is very important. So when we take a financial statement, annual financial statement, mostly these are the sides that are very important, because these are the things that you are going to meet in your exam. Okay, so anytime you get what, a financial report, mostly after looking at the financial statement, jump to the chairman and CEO statement, the corporate governance report, the CSR, and the sustainability report. Right? Write this down. Specifically read the following. Kindly write it down before I move. Very important. I'm giving you tidbits so that when you get any case, it's like you don't need any lecturer to do pre-scene analysis for you. You're already on top of your game. That is what I want. So that the pre-scene that I'm coming to do, you guys, is like, you're already on top of the game. You are on top of issues. You get it? These are some of the things that we are talking about. Is that okay? Now, this will enable you to acquaint yourself with the different industries and the operating environment, and enable you to appreciate the practical aspects of corporate governance and business ethics. And trust me, let me tell you the gospel truth. The reason why people are failing case study is actually because of governance and business ethics. That's why I've underlined them. Let me highlight them. Governance and business ethics. Now listen, this is the main area where people fail. People will be like, but these areas are small marks. No, it cuts across the whole paper. When you look at introduction to case study, governance and ethics is there. When you go to finance, there's a bit of ethics and governance there. When you come to risk, there's governance and ethics there. When you go to governance and ethics itself, it's still there. So it cuts across the whole paper. So if you are not on top of governance and ethics, that is why you fail. It's not the strategy. When it comes to the failure around the strategy, let me tell you the areas people usually fail. The implementation part, the organizational structure, the change management, the model. It's either you know or you don't know. So when they go and ask you something like greenest growth model, if you know, you know. You don't know, you don't know. Are they lie? If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. That is it. So that's where people usually fail. And also the application of particular models. When it comes to environmental analysis, majority of students always do well. But when they twist it a little, maybe if it is one-sided, let's say they tell you that, okay, apply a pestle analysis, I get in stating how the company will be able to pay its outstanding debt. That means they're asking you for the positive side of the environment, the opportunities this guy has to draw cash flows to pay, right? So remember that anything that if affects the business's cash flows, I get in positively, will be an opportunity because it will increase cash. That's where you, the accountant, you are interested in. And when it is the other way, then it is what? A loss to the business, so a threat. So just be familiar with this. I have highlighted governance and ethics. If you want to pass this paper, I beg you, start today. This evening. Now go and take the ICA book. Start today. Is that okay? Start today. If your screen is not clear, go to settings, click the YouTube screen, you see a portion for settings, right? And you see quality. They've put, it depends on the quality that you have. Click the quality, go to advanced, and select the highest one, which is 720 pixels. Do you understand? Okay, so now that we've seen that, make sure you are able to cover the entire syllabus. Very important. So please make sure you write the structure. Spend these few minutes to write the structure. I'll be with you. Please, have you been able to write the structure down? So if you can see it from here, you can see that you have what? Strategic management issues covering 50%. Right? But then I spoke about an issue, which is what? Making sure you cover the entire syllabus. Now, how is that possible? People will be like, hey, the syllabus is broad, or even look at the ICA book. How is it possible? Now, covering the entire syllabus increases your ability to effectively tackle case study and scenario questions, which examines your knowledge, understanding, and application of majority of the issues in solving business or organizational problems. Now, listen. You see, even the strategic management issues that you see there, it has a bit of finance, it has a bit of ethics, it has a bit of what? Governance. Okay, so if you see, there's one particular area which you can see on the screen, which is business plans, which covers 20%, 20 marks. So always, if business plan is coming between 10 to 20 marks, you are assured that you are getting what? Business plan is actually strategic implementation. So if they don't bring business plan, they might bring extract from the business plan, where you prepare an extract for 10 marks, and another functional area may come, maybe some organizational structure or change management. Are you getting it? Yes. So you can see this, and if you've written the structure down, I want you to look at it well. If you look at this course itself, it is broken into 4 parts. The first part being strategic management, the second part being risk management, the third part being financial management, and the last part being corporate governance and ethics. So if you can break it into 4, you have strategic management, financial management, risk management, and corporate governance and ethics. So if you look at it, if you master these 4 areas, you should be fine. So acquaint yourself with this structure. Now, let's take them one by one. Risk and risk management. Okay, so these are the detailed aspects. So risk and risk management should not be a new concept to you, because it has been covered previously in financial management. So this alone should make you happy. Why? Because these concepts of risk and risk management, are you getting it? Including the treasury management part, which has to do with this transaction risk, economic risk, and translation risk, and TARA, management of risk. Okay, you should be familiar with them. If you've taken exemption, then go and look at them again, because literally every financial decision that involves risk will involve you to hedge your risk. So the way it is examined in the strategic case study, however, is unlikely to be the same as what you have faced in the previous exam. Yes, under financial management level, it was very difficult, or at least it was standard. Here it is on the low. We require more of advisory capacity rather than computational. So here you may do computations only to support your advice. So every decision made or action taken by an organization will involve a degree of risk. We all know that. So the exposure to risk and the impact this is likely to have on an organization, and the extent to which the risk appetite of the organization will allow them to accept such risk, should be kept in mind for any analysis you are asked to undertake. So after you know the risk profile of an organization, you must know the risk appetite of the stakeholders, mostly the shareholders, and you must know their ability to take up risk, their risk capacity. Do you understand? So all these issues are mostly considered when it comes to risk management. So every decision you take, you must consider it in line with the risk of the organization you are dealing with. So making comments about inherent risk associated with the decision and linking this to the information in the case study will help you to enrich your answers and will indicate a strong understanding of the organization, the impact and acceptability of proposals, and an ability to make balanced and sensible observations about the company. So you go, sometimes most questions will tell you to identify risks that this company is likely to face. So because it's a future thing, identify risks. Some people will look through the case that they can't find. Sometimes the risks are obvious, some are likely. So you have to suggest them. Market risk, this is the risk that so and so company will. Are you getting? That's the way you apply theory. Are you getting it? And most of the time when they bring proposals, they require the non-financial parts. Are you getting it? So if you've done management accounting before, there's something we call qualitative characteristics. Those who have that management accounting before, they understand that. Are you getting it? Some of these things should be considered. What's the reaction of your existing suppliers, your managers if you shut down this division? All that. Are you getting? We consider all those qualitative characteristics and their risk nature. So noting actions that you may take in light of a particular risk in order to mitigate it further, demonstrate your business sense and ability to apply the knowledge you have gained throughout your studies. Is that okay? So test yourself by reading announcements in the business news of plans made by large organizations such as relocation of operations, expansion, store or factory closures, mergers, and so on. So consider the risk that the organization will be exposed to when making these decisions. For example, think about what risks are likely to arise and how likely do you consider that they will materialize. So mostly you use what we call a risk map. Are you getting it? Risk mapping, where you consider the impact, which is the effect of the risk. Is it a heavy blow? And then the probability that the risk will happen. So likely to arise, that's the probability of the risk, and how would they materialize, which is what the effect of the risk, right? Or the impact of the risk. So what is the impact of these risks, as I was saying, both on the organization as a whole and on the various stakeholders that may be involved, such as the investors, employees, suppliers, customers, and the local community. You see, this alone is teaching you how to answer risk questions. Can you rank them in order of seriousness or plot them on a risk map using your analysis so far? You see, it is teaching you what recommendations would you make to the board for managing these risks and reduce their impact. This is where you use STARA. Are you getting it? Or the 40 approach. If you can't transfer, you reduce. Not so. If you can't reduce, you accept it for what it is. If you can't do that, not so, you avoid the risk altogether. You can use the 40 approach or ISO 31000. Not so. I get it. There are a lot of risk management models. The common ones is STARA or the 40 approach, which if you can't transfer, you can treat the risk. You can't treat, you can tolerate. You can't tolerate, you terminate the risk. Are you getting it? So that is it. So remember that at the case study level, you need to apply your knowledge. For example, if you use the TARA framework to help you determine strategies for managing a particular risk, it is no longer enough to simplify. Are you getting it? And simply state that the risk should be reduced, for instance. You would need to develop this point using case material and your own business knowledge to suggest how exactly you could do this. So it should match the case study, right? You don't just say reduce the risk. How? Are you getting it? Since this guy does regular training program, let's use last diet case for instance. He trains his staff, medical staff, the laboratory department. They do continuous professional development. We can reduce the risk by what? Instituting better internal controls in the hospital and teaching the staff, since they do development and training. We'll try to what? Teach them more about what? Risk and risk management. This is a good example. I hope that is fair and understood. What mechanisms can you put in place to monitor these risks and actually keep them under control? Now, that is about risk management. I told you your paper can be broken into 4. So we've looked at the risk management part and what you are supposed to know. I get it. The next part has to do with financial strategy. Now, this is very broad. If you look at the ICA book, a chunk of it is covered by strategic financial strategy management, or simply financial strategy and financial decision making. So majority of the syllabus covers that. If you like, open the book, a chunk of it covers this, but they are saying it's only 20%. No, it's not 20%. It is mixed up even with strategy. So don't let anybody lie to you and say financial strategy is just 20%. When people say it, I laugh. Okay, so the tools and models covered in this section, a number of this is from the examiner, a number of which will already be familiar to you, will provide you with the knowledge foundation you will require for the analysis you will need to carry out in the exam. So your basic MPV, your basic financial management that you knew from your university or from ICA level 2. Are you getting it? We will apply it to specific decisions. Listen, specific decisions, meaning that it could be an investment decision, it could be a financial decision, it could be a dividend decision, it could be a working capital decision. Are we okay? Is it understood? Now, Remember, however, that this is a high-level exam, and it is unlikely that you will need to carry out long, complex calculations. Please, I want you to write this down in your paper in capital letters and write it boldly. People end up learning some horrible long MPV calculations, some horrible what do we call it, money market hedging. Meanwhile, the simple money market hedge is what they even actually brought last 2 nights. Simple. You don't have to go. Some people are learning options and swaps, option add, premium, less. All these things will not help, right? It's just basic. It's the understanding that they need and the application of what you have done. This calculation that you have done, and mostly I'll recommend students to always add their calculations as an appendix to the original calculation. So that they will explain and say, see, attach an appendix for the necessary calculation. So if you are doing ratios, don't mix the interpretation with the calculation. It's not professional, right? At this level, you're a senior financial executive. So some calculations are likely to be needed. Listen carefully. Some calculations are likely to be needed, but the key focus is on their use. Are you getting it? An application, for example, you may need to interpret results or criticize approaches or decisions taken by the organization. So the examiner has even given you what you need, right? He has given you what you need. Let me put this in yellow. He said what? The key focus is on what? 1, the use and application. 2, what are the things you are going to use this use and application for? You are going to 1, interpret results. 2, criticize approach that was done. So sometimes a calculation will be done by someone, right? It will be done by a manager, it will be done by a production manager, financial manager, a trainee, right? And you are going to criticize what they have done and suggest a better one. Or decisions that have been taken by management. Are you getting it? So sometimes they may bring issues of poor budgeting. You have to talk about it, right? Though budgeting will not be covered as a topic. Remember that one of the roles of the senior financial executive is what we call strategic planning and control. And budgetary control is part of strategic control, right? And budgets are also for planning, so it's still there. But here it is not detailed like what you do in management accounting. You just need to know the role of budget, the type of budget is going to help you. Then let's come to financial strategy. Once again, I'm still under financial strategy, but then we are going to look at finance itself, right? Notice that both ethics and risk appear in this section in a more applied context. So the ethics, you see, I was telling you that business ethics and then corporate governance and risk are throughout the whole paper. But people will be like, oh, but it's on it. So no. If you are doing financial management, for instance, you are doing MPV, you are doing IRR, there may be certainty equivalence. That is where you calculate what we call expected values, right? You multiply the probability by the cash flow to come and get the expected value, which you use to do your MPV or your IRR calculation, whatever. So risk is always there. And sometimes the manager, let's say this investment is risky, right? And the manager is risk seeker. He's a risk seeker. He likes risk. And he sort of what? Imposes his risk attitude on the shareholders. It is unethical. You get it? So these are some of the scenarios that you are going to see. So we apply ethics and risk in a more applied context in financial strategy. This demonstrates the importance of these two areas and their significance in underpinning any decision an organization is faced with. So this level also demonstrates the importance of having good grounding in these two areas so that you can remain vigilant. You see, they know the paper is difficult, so they told you that do you understand? Be vigilant, because this paper is not as easy as it is. If it was easy, they will not tell you to remain vigilant. That means it can trick you. They can trick you. Already you don't know how to apply, and they are tricking you again. That is why the failure rate for strategic case study is very high, and I decided to take the time to actually go through this document with you. I get it. Remain vigilant for any potential ethical issues, right? Or risk in any analysis that you carry out. So sometimes you may do an analysis and they'll ask you, what ethical issues do you see about? And you remember earlier on I was telling you that when it comes to ethical issues and risk, start looking at qualitative characteristics. You get it? For instance, we are shutting down a division, right? Have we thought about redundancy? Have we thought about people who are losing their jobs? Have we thought about people, fair treatment, child labor that we are using? Have we thought about people their severance pay, people who are hurt, all that. Are you getting it? So these are potential ethical issues, and mostly they come as part of proposals. When you are doing financial proposals, these things come a lot, so you should be ready to deal with some of these things. Please, I hope you are writing some of the things I'm saying down, or you are just chilling with your Coke and biscuit. Okay, shall we continue? So a good deal of the financial strategy part covers sources of equity and capital structure. Please, I don't expect anybody to go to the exam without this area. I don't expect anybody to go to the exam without sources of equity and debt and capital structure. This area, it is like let it be like a sticky note on your PC, right, or your book. A sticky note means that it's always there. Even if you have not read anything, you should know equity, the different ways of raising equity, debt, the types of debt, because this is from financial management. So when it comes and student cannot offer, they cannot actually answer it, how does the examiner feel? It's like, these people have taken exemption, they are not serious. So it is the student who is making them tighten the marking scheme, because sources of finance you guys don't know, capital structure you don't know. Here you are not even computing cost of capital, work and the rest, and you are still struggling. So this thing, I'm telling you, there are some things, you see, when I mention it, I keep hitting them. Don't go to the exam. One guy pissed me off last night. He was like, this thing is in the book, debt, capital and the rest. I'm like, really? Hey, and you are writing case study, and he has 48. If he had just gotten the time to just go through sources of equity, capital structure, he should be fine. Capital structure is all about gearing and its impact on your capital. Are you getting it? This is not anything that you should have a problem with, right? That's why I tell you that you always need a good guide in this paper. When you have a good guide, you should sail smoothly. It's not just about theory, but your ability to link all these things. Are you getting it? So listen to what the examiner says. He says what? These are important considerations for any organization, particularly those pursuing what? A growth strategy. Because growth strategies are a key strategic direction for every company. You need money to grow. That is why for methods of development, we have internal methods and external methods. The internal methods are what we call what? Organic growth. If you are pursuing organic growth, either through market penetration, market development, product development, or diversification, why do you need the money? Your cash may not be enough, right? So you need sources of funds. So why don't you learn the types of funds? Are you getting? The types of funds are even a source of strategic development, because to pursue a growth strategy you need money. It is when you can't get enough funds that you consider things like what? Mergers, acquisitions, so that the other person may balance you off. So you see, they are all interrelated. They are not things you have to learn separately. I hope that makes sense. So most of the time here, we are looking at sources of equity, debt and capital structure. You are mostly considering something like a major purchase, right? To grow, you need to buy a major machine. I get it. Or you need further finance to continue to survive in difficult circumstances. So maybe you want to prune, you want to cut down some product lines that are not doing well, you want to shut down divisions, you want to implement a turnaround strategy, you want to go with liquidation, bankruptcy strategy. All these things are strategies that still you need money to do them. You get it? So that is why sources of equity, debt and capital structure, please don't ever ignore this. Even from tomorrow, start reading them together with the ethics, governance thing. If you know finance, you know ethics and governance, you have a high chance of passing this paper, because those areas will always come in one way or the other. Is that okay? So make sure you understand the various financing options open to a company, its implications, the benefits and issues associated with each. So they are already giving you the guidance. So when it comes to corporate governance, this section is concerned with the way that the organization are run from the top. When we say top, we mean the board level. So there are clear links with ethics in terms of conflict of interest and working in the best interest of shareholders and other stakeholders. So ethics, governance, I tell you, is spread across the syllabus, but you will not see. You'll be like, oh, ethics and governance are just 20 marks. No, it is not. It is more than that. Kindly look at the syllabus very well. If I should open the syllabus, you see that, yeah, just at the start of the paper, there's still ethics and governance. So there are also links to risk. You see, I told you risk also cuts across. Links to risk such as compliance risk in relation to listed companies, in relation to the structure of the board. So most of the time you see risk in the structure of the board, how the board is spread. There's always going to be governance weaknesses, and ICA mostly likes family centric businesses where a family man is running the company, or a family has come together, they are running the company. They want to be stable. I get it. They don't want to bring anybody on board, that strict culture. Family businesses have that kind of rigid culture. They don't want to change. So as with ethics and risk, corporate governance issues should be kept in mind when answering any case study question, as it underpins the way in which the organization operates, its culture, policies and procedures, treatment of stakeholders and many other factors. So the section could be examined directly. Example, explain to the board why the establishment of a separate risk committee should be considered, right? So this is where it is examined directly as corporate governance. This one you can see that the question is corporate governance question. But what are other ways it can be examined? Indirectly, for instance, as a part of a wider review of a company, you may identify governance issues such as unbalanced board structure, individuals with too much influence and power, or disclosures that have not been made. This is the examiner telling you. Are you getting it? This is the examiner telling you. So you can see that he's telling you that corporate governance issues can be examined in two different ways. Do you understand? Either directly, or sometimes you are doing SWOT analysis. These things are all weaknesses, right? They are governance issues. They are weaknesses where you have one person having so much power, the board structure is not balanced. Are you getting it? With too much power or influence in one person, no disclosures have been made. We don't have non-executive directors on board and stuff like that. Do you understand? So very, very important. Now, when it comes to corporate governance, this is what the examiner is telling you. He's telling you that what? Ensure you have knowledge of these things. And these things are the same questions that keep coming in corporate governance questions in the case study exam. The best practices in corporate governance, that is the OECD principle, ICGM principles and best practice. FATI, fairness, accountability, transparency, independence, the principles of corporate governance, the best practice, very important. Then the key roles of the CEO, the chairman and NEDs, you need to know them. Then the various committee of the board and its purpose. If you know these things I'm highlighting, you will write them down and start looking for answers to them immediately. So remuneration to board members, that's executive packages, disclosures relating to corporate governance, and governance issues for not-for-profit organizations. So if you know answers to all these areas, I don't think there's any question that will come up in the case study exam that you cannot answer. I hope that is understood, well understood. So that is about risk, financial strategy, ethics and governance. Now we come to strategy proper. Corporate strategy. Yes, any question before we move to corporate strategy? The people who said the session is not friendly, they cannot see, it's your network. So what you can do is you can refresh your YouTube, or you just wait when the session is done, then you re-watch it. Are we okay? So let's go. So what are the specific tidbits that we have to understand when it comes to corporate strategy? Well, just like, because our syllabus focuses on the rational model, with the rational model it follows a logical step-by-step model, right? For formulating strategy, we can always go back. Are you getting it? Or have time to change and do what we want to do. Are you getting it? That is why it follows a step-by-steps. I get a formal graduation. So it starts by formulating strategy, then we put people to work, which we call implementation. So when you form the strategy, you put people to work and they are going to make sure your strategy comes to life. Then after that, you evaluate and control. So you check whether that strategy, that the implementation that they have done, are you getting it? You are performing well. That is why strategic evaluation and control comes with performance appraisal. Check whether what has been done properly. and what controls can you put in place to ensure that next time it will be done better. So when we look at it from the point of Johnson, Scholes and Whittington, we can see it as strategic position or strategic analysis, strategic choice or simply strategic options and choice, and strategy into action. So we need to understand each of these levels, which is the position, which is also known as strategic formulation. We need to know strategic choices and strategy into action. Okay, so the first part that we've seen, which is strategy formulation, implementation, evaluation, and control, is the American model. Okay, so the American variant, they look at it like that. Then when we look at the normal one from Exploring Corporate Strategy, which is by J, S, and W, they go with the strategy, position, choices, and into action. Okay, so literally when you come here, the strategic position and strategic choice are what we see here under strategy formulation, right? And then strategy into action is what we see here as strategic implementation, evaluation, and control. Okay, so if you use any of them to answer your questions, it's just the meaning, right? So what is the approach? Actually, the critical task of strategic management starts like this. You develop a mission, vision statement, objectives, and identify critical success factors, and key performance indicators from your mission. Okay, so this identification of key success factors or critical success factors and key performance indicators, you establish them so that you can use them to monitor performance in the future, right? So if you know that, let's say with an airline, right, we know that some of the things that will make them very successful is what? Safety. How do you measure safety? The number of airplane crashes that have happened during the period. If you've heard of no airplane crashes, you'll be enjoying the air flight, right? The flight, maybe you are looking at what? Customer satisfaction. Can you book ahead of time? How do they respond to you? All these things, how do you measure them? So when we know all these things, in the future we can measure them. Are you getting it? We can use matrices in performance to measure some of these things. Is that okay? So apart from that, now this material is all in your textbook. Open the first part of your ICA textbook. Is there. It's the same thing. Now from there, you assess the external environment to identify key opportunities and threats that face the organization. Okay, so after analyzing to see the threats and opportunities that you are going to face, you are now going to look within your pocket. It's like, let's say you've gone somewhere, people are fighting, or it starts raining, right? That's external. You look in your toolkit, your bag, to see if you have an umbrella. Is that also to see if you can cover yourself? It's the same idea. So as you look at the external environment, now you look within your organization to see whether you have the competencies and resources to deal with what? Those things you see in the external environment. So those competencies and resources together gives you your capability. Is it a strategic capability or is a threshold capability? If it's a strategic capability, it means that that capability, which is your resources and your skills, should have value. It should be rare. It should be inimitable, meaning people cannot copy, and it should be well organized, or it should be something people cannot copy. If that is so, it can lead to what? Strategic competitive advantage, meaning people cannot easily copy. If that is the case, then you can use those strengths, which is what? The resources and the capabilities that you have, to take advantage of opportunities that you saw in the environment or weaken threats that you saw in the environment. I hope that is understood. So from there, you are now going to look at strategic options you can choose after knowing your position by matching your internal factors, that is your resources and capabilities we just talked about, with the things in the external environment. This is where you do a SWOT analysis. So the end of your strategic analysis or strategic position is to actually do a SWOT analysis. From there, you do what we call a TOES analysis. But if you like, your TOES analysis will be part of your options and choice, right? So when you are matching, that means you are looking for what? Choices to adopt. Are you getting it? Or options to adopt, then you choose from them. So from there, you now identify the most desirable strategic options available to the organization by evaluating each option in the light of the organization's mission and vision. And this is where you have to look at the options that are available, check whether they are suitable, they are feasible, they are acceptable, right? they are desirable by the stakeholders. You check all that. Then you select a set of long-term objectives and grand strategies that will achieve the most desirable strategic option. Is that okay? So you now develop annual objectives and short-term strategies that will achieve the most desirable options. Now, there are also specific activities which you have to understand. That what we just talked about was what? Strategic analysis and what? And choice. Now you have to identify specific issues. When it comes to implementation, we call them management issues, like communicating strategies, using KPIs, CSFs, looking at developing and communicating policies, and also looking at a supportive organizational structure, matching your leadership with strategy, embedding strategy into organizational culture. So looking at the cultural web, looking at other aspects of organizational culture, the seen and unseen part of organizational culture. And also then we come to what? Reward and motivational systems. Are you getting it? But you see, the areas that have been highlighted are mostly very examinable. Okay, like the organizational structure, organizational culture. When it comes to accounting and finance, mostly HR, marketing, operations, R&D, and management, information systems, and IT, they will be interchanging. Are you getting it? But the most likely ones are the accounting and finance part. Are you getting? Mostly performance analysis and and evaluation using the balance scorecard, building block model, and other ones. Apart from that, the marketing mix. When it comes to marketing, even last night it came. So you see, please don't ignore these areas. It could be that this time they may decide to bring operations management, which is production, right? Procurement, factory setting, plant design, the Lynch and Cross performance pyramid. Are you getting it? IT systems, which last night it was likely, but they didn't bring it. It could mean this that they may bring it. May is conditional, right? So your understanding and appreciation for these functional issues are crucial for issues bordering on business plans. So remember, I was telling you that even in the business plan, these things are very important. I hope that is okay. Now, when it comes to strategic evaluation, remember I told you at the top that you must what? Establish your financial success, which is using your critical success factors or key success factors, and then your key performance indicators, right? So to measure performance, whether you have achieved those CSFs, we can use other methods like using the balance scorecard, the budget and budgetary control. Are you getting it? We can use external review framework, the rational model, Rummel's 4 criteria, and McKinsey 7S framework. Are you getting it? These are some of the models you can use here to sort of look at whether you have actually attained your strategy. You can even use the resource model, right? We call it the 9M resource model to look at your manpower, your management. You can look at a lot of factors, right? Your makeup, your market, whether they are succeeding, to measure whether your strategy is a good one. Is that okay? So what are some key topics you must thoroughly understand? So the external environmental analysis, you need to understand it very well. How to use the PESTEL framework. Are you getting it? How to use the Porter's diamond. Are you getting it? But mostly we say use the IAM model in applying PESTEL. Identify what are the PESTEL factors that impact the organization. Assess what are the effects on the current operations of the firm. Monitor how are these factors changing or likely to change in the future. Are you getting it? So IAM, please remember this when you are applying PESTEL. You can even use the IWA. What is the issue? Why does it matter? Are you getting it? Issue, why is it an issue? Then the action to take. Are we getting it? So that can be used for PESTEL. Then we have the 5 forces model and the industry life cycle. I always tell people that you see something. The industry life cycle is one thing that you can even use to do a lot of things. A lot of things. So if you take every industry, the industry goes through a number of stages, right? So if I should draw this, I know every industry must start with introduction, and also it must grow, it must mature, and it must decline, right? Now, just like the product life cycle, the industry life cycle follows the same trend. Now, listen, this model can be used for a lot of things. You can even use it for strategy development. So, an understanding of this model, you can use it in strategic analysis to identify how your markets are moving. You can use it as strategic choice, right? To identify what strategies are suitable at each level. You can use it even for strategic evaluation and control to identify what strategies have been adopted and whether they are important. So at the introduction stage, you should know what strategy may be important. Maybe here the person may go with low cost. At the growth stage, he's now growing. He's aware of the market, right? And these are the same things that tell you that, okay, in the growth stage, most people will be coming in, more competitors will be coming in. So that's why you adopt growth strategies, right? At the maturity stage, you are more mature, you are stable, so you think about stability strategies, right? Then here you think about decline and turnaround strategies, not so. So you see that the industry life cycle itself, it gives you everything you need. The same way, if I want to use the Boston Consulting Group matrix, then I know in the introduction stage, most people are not aware of my product, but my product has potential for growth. I can use what? The Boston Consulting Group, the BCG matrix, or any other portfolio matrix. I can say the product here is a problem child, or the business here is a problem child. When you come to the growth stage, the business that is growing, it is a star. It has high market share, high market growth, right? But because a lot of competitors are coming in, it will not be rich as the cash cow. So in the maturity stage, the product is already mature. Nobody can compete. It is enjoying economies of scale and economies of scope, right? So people cannot easily compete with it. Here, the product you mostly have here, the business you mostly have here is a cash cow. Not so bad. The decline stage, you mostly have a dog. Not so. So you see, each of the industry life cycle is a big model that you can use to do a lot of things in corporate strategy. Okay, so when you know this model, I trust that when you know this model, it is going to help you a lot, and you are going to be very comfortable when you are dealing with case study. I hope that is okay. So the 5 forces model and the industry life cycle, as I told you, very important. Then you have to know strategic group analysis and the cycle of competition. Okay, so most of the time you should know what competitor analysis is, who are your competitors. You can develop a profile for each of them, identify their objectives and strategies, assess their strengths and weaknesses, gauge the threat that they pose to you, and anticipate their reaction to the competitive moves that you make. So you can develop a systematic and advanced competitor profiling, to have significant competitive advantage. Now, when you come to the internal analysis bit, there are some things that you need to know, like the resource-based approach to strategy, the value chain model, SWOT, that's the strength and weaknesses part, tools matrix. I will bring ratio analysis here to support you, because you need ratio analysis to know your internal performance. Remember, the balance scorecard, benchmarking, customer relationship management. Okay, so these areas, don't joke with it at all. Know them like something. Are you getting it? So they can be applied concurrently in internal analysis. They are not mutually exclusive. It's not that when you apply this one, you cannot apply this one. You can apply all of them at the same time. So when you go to the exam, just be wary, just be ready to deal with these issues when they appear. Now, then we come to the international environmental analysis, which you remember I mentioned the Porter's Diamond. Now, the Porter's Diamond, you can use it to assess whether the industry you are entering, you can compete there. So it can be used as part of international strategy, or you can use it as just external environmental analysis, right? But it's from a global perspective. How attractive is the industry in a particular country? So, for instance, how attractive is the tourism industry in Ghana or the hospitality industry in Ghana? Can Ghana compete with other countries? That's what we are looking at it at a global scale. Okay, so once you have been able to do all this, you have been able to do a SWOT analysis. You now start looking at strategic alternatives. Now, the whole thing at ICA level, which I'm going to explain quickly, I'll end that section there, is that when it comes to what do we call it? Strategy, it is developed from 4 phases. Okay, so when you look in the ICA book, it says 4 areas of successful strategy development. Successful strategy development. So these are the 4 areas ICA always examines. Okay, so these 4 areas, we have 1, product and market. So let's just call it portfolio strategies. Let's go to 2. Let's call it growth vector. Let's come to 3. Let's call it competitive advantage. And let's come to 4. Let's call it synergy, right? And we know synergy means what? 1 + 1 is equal to 5. No, so the combined efforts of 2 or more persons is greater than their individual efforts combined. So when you look at this ICA questions on strategic development, are always going to come from these 4 areas. Either of them will appear in the exam. So portfolio strategy, this is where you are looking at things like the BCG, you are looking at things like the Ashridge portfolio display, you are looking at things like the GE planning grid, your public sector portfolio matrix, you are looking at things like the Shell directional policy matrix. Are you getting it? These are one area that they can ask you a question. The next one is to use the Ansoff's matrix, Ansoff and related strategies, right? Like withdrawal, consolidation, these areas. Are we getting it? Then another area is competitive advantage, where you are looking at how to gain competitive advantage. So here mostly you'll be talking about the generic strategies, the strategy clock, the viral framework. You are looking at hyper competition strategies. You are looking at strategic position by Porter. Okay, strategic position or product positioning strategies, strategic product positioning by Porter. I get it. There are 6 principles. So these areas are likely. Then when it comes to synergy means you are growing together with somebody. Okay, so this is where you consider joint development. Okay, joint development. So when we say synergy, you are talking about joint development. So this is where you talk about mergers and acquisition strategy, you talk about collaboration with other people through joint ventures and all that. And also synergy too, you can talk about growth vector. You can also talk about international strategies, right, where you can work international. So these are the 4 key areas of strategic development that ICA will mostly be asking you questions on. So when you know these 4 areas, you know the models there, Master, you are good to go. So with all that I've said, together with strategy, implementation and all that, together with the things that I've said, these are the major areas that if you know, your chances of passing strategic case study are over 90%, right? Your pass mark will be guaranteed. Though there are a lot, but I think it's late and then people need to go and rest and go to work tomorrow. So we'll end here. That's why I summarized this. So I hope this was a good session. Have a beautiful evening and a wonderful night.